Well, great evening, everyone. It is such a pleasure to have y'all here with us. It's so funny. I was kind of a little apprehensive about what our turnout was going to be like with this being an evening virtual event for ABC. Our evening in person is one thing, but an evening virtual event sometimes can be positive or it can go negative. Just depends on your time spot. But I'm glad that so many of you decided to take the opportunity to not only register but to show up for this event today, because as I stated earlier, we are in a very interesting time in our country, in our economy, especially in our workforce. And it is essential for us to have the conversation that we are going to have tonight, which definitely is about upskilling and reskilling. Of course, we all have our skill sets that we can always improve upon and that we can accentuate in some way and really stand on those. But then there may be a shift that some of us need to take that just makes a lot of sense with the skill set that we have and in the skill set that we may need to accrue or sharpen, that we need to pull off of the shelf. And we may need to do it from a business owner standpoint, but we also may need to be able to do it from an employee standpoint, right? Or an executive level standpoint. We need to understand and have that conversation so that everyone is on the same page and identifies how we can successfully move forward in an interesting market such as this. So without further ado, I know y'all are like, who is this talking head sitting in here with us? Some of you know me because we've been acquainted, but some of you do not. I am Lauren Levins. I am the chair of the Education and Workforce Development Committee of the Atlanta Black Chambers. And I know some of you are very familiar with some of our other committees, and this is one that is being re-engaged and re-emerging. And we actually started the re-engagement and re-emergence this year in May of this year. And so we are excited to have been able to have two virtual events. This is our second one that we've had this year. The first one was on AI and workforce development. If you missed that one, you probably want to tap into it because as Rosalind and Danielle and I were having conversations prior to admitting you all into the room, AI is a very big conversation piece right now for so many people, and from so many different angles. And so if you did miss that one, feel free to go to our YouTube page for the chambers and lock in to that conversation, because we had a lot of valuable information and content that was shared. But this one tonight is our second virtual event on upskilling and reskilling. And I also want to take the time to just let you all know a little bit about me and my tenure with the chambers. I can tell you about my business later, but right now I sit before you on behalf of the chambers. So I've been with the chambers for 5 years. And 2024, I was named the ABC Member of the Year, which is a very, very, very esteemed privilege, as there are three of us, but previously there had only been one person named the Member of the Year prior to my being named it. So our first one was Lisa White. I received it the second year that the award was being offered. And believe it or not, and I was not expecting to see him here, but our 2025 Member of the Year, Joseph Harland, is actually in our room tonight. And Joseph, we want to definitely thank you for joining us and being a part of this conversation, especially being a business owner with a la carte capital. And coming in, and I know you'll provide some amazing expertise, but he is our 2025 Member of the Year, and he's family to me, like really, really family. So I was so excited that he was the person that came behind me in terms of being awarded Member of the Year. But we also have with us one of our leadership team members for the Education and Workforce Development Committee is with us this evening. Dale Martin is one of our sponsorship lead for the actual Education and Workforce Development Committee. And so, Dale, we are super excited and thankful to have you join us today all the way from New York. He is in New York, and he is an active chamber member. So do not let where you are from, if you are not in Atlanta, deter you and make you think that you cannot make headway, you cannot be seen, and you cannot be influential in this organization. Okay, you absolutely. I'm sorry, you guys, I just got an interesting notification and I was trying to make sure we're recording to the cloud. Okay. But you can absolutely make sure that you are an intricate part of what we are building here inside of the chambers, and we continue to move towards year after year on a consistent basis. And so, without further ado, I will absolutely bring to the table our amazing panelists for tonight's discussion. So, we have two, they're actually both members of our Education and Workforce Development Committee, and they have a very extensive background. They are very highly skilled in this conversation that we are going to have this evening. And one of the great things about it is they come from two different perspectives. One has some in-depth knowledge from the public's perspective, and one has in-depth knowledge from the private perspective. And then both of them at different junctures have a little bit of crossover into the other one. So we're going to have a very in-depth conversation. I'm excited to have them join us and have this provide the information that they will with us today. You are going to be leaving here with some tangibles and some goodies, so don't think this is just all talk. This is definitely going to allow you the opportunity to leave here with some actual walk-away tools and knowledge base and skills that you can apply immediately, because that is exactly what we wanted to bring to the table. And just so you all are aware, once we start the actual panel discussion, please know that you can put questions into the chat, and we will ask those questions in the chat throughout. Feel free to have communication in the chat. I love to see it, and I very, very encouragingly engage with you all as you enter information into the chat. And please also be mindful that there may be a time frame where I am able to ask you to come off of mute and ask the question yourself if you do have a question that you'd like to ask that has not been asked already. So without further ado, Rosalind, Lett, and Danielle Harrington, if you both could come off of mute for me. And I want to make sure that I allow you all to introduce yourself to our audience, because sometimes the best person to introduce us is ourselves. So Rosalind, since you're already off of mute, I will ask you to go ahead and go first and tell the people about Rosalind Lett.
Okay, my name is Rosalind Lett. I am a former director of a library system in Clayton County, but I am currently a strategic impact consultant and grant strategist. So I help mission-driven organizations to get ready to get grant funding, and then to also write to get that grant funding. But my background has included kind of years of being in the library world. I started in the medical library world, and then I evolved to the public library world. So I have a close kinship with reskilling, upskilling, and things that you need to do to shift jobs or shift positions, or to look at other alternatives and avenues for you. So I hope tonight to be able to share some of that with you, and that you will leave with some pearls of wisdom.
I love it. Thank you, Rosalind.
You're welcome.
And Danielle, if you could introduce yourself to our amazing audience.
Sure. Rosalind's a little tough to follow here. My name is Danielle Harrington, and I have been in the HR, learning and development world for over 25 years. So what I do is I do a lot of HR and leadership strategy. So I look at succession planning, workforce development, professional development for organizations as they change, grow, and their impact on the retention and development of talent. So that's what I do. As Lauren mentioned, I've worked in the private sector for many years. I initially started off on Wall Street in HR operations in the early 2000s. I'm also an officer in the Army Reserves. I've been in for over 30 years. So I have a background in medical operations and planning. So I do a lot on that. And that also deals with talent training and being prepared as, our world changes. So that's what I spend a lot of time doing, is working with organizations on, how they can get the best out of their teams, and looking at, as things are changing, what do they need to do to be prepared for that. So that's what I do.
So now you all understand why I say they are perfectly skilled to sit before you and have this conversation and provide information and feedback. And these are the types of people that you have access to inside of the chambers. We are such a very diverse and, man, heavy hitting, heavily skilled, heavily connected organization. And so, Coach Linda, that's why you got to go ahead and join the chambers, because this is who we provide you access to. But let's go ahead and dive in with the first question. And either of you can answer this, both of you can answer this, but this one I think is a very important question to start our conversation. And that's, how would you describe the key forces that are reshaping our workforce today? And I think we all know one of the top ones because we've been having a conversation about it prior to starting, but I will let you guys openly answer that question. How would you describe the key forces reshaping the workforce today?
All right. Well, I was looking at Rosalind. Well, I will definitely say technology. And we were talking about that earlier. AI is a game changer for what we're doing because it is really around efficiency. That's what organizations are driving at. How can I be more efficient, and how can it cost me less to be more efficient? So those are key drivers for organizations.
And I would chime in and say that the changing work models, there are a lot of organizations now that will let you still work hybrid, but a lot of them are looking at remote work. A lot of them are looking at other ways. There are a lot of opportunities for freelancers and people who are consultants, that kind of thing. So the landscape has changed a lot. And what you have to do to fit in is kind of start to learn about you to know which of these works better for you. And in some instances, it works better for you to be in person, and others, some of the other flexible ways work. And then the demographics are changing where you have more older workers working with younger workers. And so the organizations have to be attuned to having communication styles that work for everybody. So getting to be some of the things that are kind of key indicators and things that, as long as, as well as the digital transformations and the learning how to use the technology and the automation and all that as well.
No, those are really good points by both of you, because I'm going to tell you, I love remote work. I've never done work from home, but I've done remote work. And of course, I love having the flexibility that I have now because I get to decide where I go and what I do, right? But you also see where some of these, a lot of the office spaces, and I'm in real estate, so that's why I'm bringing up these stats, y'all. But office space rentals, like, it has increased exponentially over the course of the last quarter in a way that it had not for years, like since the pandemic. So, I also wonder, and having to adjust into the possibility of not even being able to do hybrid or remote, right? Where you have to be back in the office now. I literally was talking to a friend of mine now where they are like, no, we don't have a choice. We're back in the office. Some are back in the office 4 days a week, some 3, and now we have some that are back 5 days a week. And then we look overseas to a country like, I want to say it was either the Netherlands or New Zealand, where they've adopted a 4-day work week across the board for everyone in the country. And we're like, hello, US, can we get on board with that? Because you have a better quality of life and people don't mind actually doing the work and coming to work, right? And you guys, remember, feel free to drop any questions that come to your mind. Feel free to drop those in the chat at any point, and we will definitely tap into those. And yes, Stephanie, and an open concept workspace with no doors or walls. I know, because one thing I hated was feeling like I was boxed in all day. You're in these little walls all day, and you can't get outside of them because you're supposed to be in the office from this time to this time, except for when you go to lunch. So this conversation is about upskilling and reskilling. So let's talk to that a little bit more. What does upskilling and reskilling look like in practical terms for someone currently in the workforce? And this is a good question, whether you are actually in the workforce as an employee, or even if you're a business owner. Like, this is just a really great conversation piece for you to be able to really understand and tap into the perspectives from both sides. So either of you can jump in. I guess I'll come to you first, Rosalind, since you're already off of mute. What does upskilling and reskilling look like in practical terms for someone currently in the workforce?
Well, the upskilling part is that you are adding new competencies to what you already have. So for instance, say you're a program manager and now you have to learn data visualization or impact measurement. So there are things that you have to learn that enhance what you already do. So like for a library worker, we would teach our folks digital literacy and then how to be community engaging. So they go out and engage with the community rather than just stay in the building. But when you're reskilling,
Mhm.
you're taking skills that you don't know already how to do and adding those to your cadre of skills. So you're say if you're in an environment where you have to learn to use a new computer technology, then you're adding those to your resume. But one of the things I've always told folks was I didn't care what kind of job you had, you need to know how to use a computer and use it well. Because when people look at you and look at all your other workers, if you have a couple of other skills that they don't have, and they start looking at who they're going to keep and who they're going to cut, you rise to the top of the list as one to keep because you have additional skill sets. So if you have opportunities to reskill or upskill, like learning new communication styles or learning how to do, for instance, grant writing, fundraising, things like that, those are things that now make you a more valuable employee. So you need to look at what can I do to make myself more valuable to the organization.
Okay. All right, Danielle, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I would definitely say that is what we're calling investing in yourself, because that is something that you have to do. I would also say you have to be aware of your surroundings. And when I say that is if you're working for an organization, what is important to them? Where are they moving toward? Because in a lot of organizations, data matters. So being data literate, data savvy, being able to tell stories with data doesn't matter what industry you're in. Those are skills that a lot of people need, especially folks that are executives or working for executives. That tells the story of what you do. Also, being keenly aware of where industries are going. And I know we'll talk about this a little bit later in your areas. What are the key new industries that are in Atlanta or just in general? It is being aware of where the economy is going, where industries are going, and that allows you to make choices on what skills that you want to enhance or you want to pick up. Because as we know, for a lot of folks, they've probably been in the workforce more than 20 years, and the skills we started with that allowed us um, to be successful are not the same skills that we have today. But
Hmm.
in saying that, I would definitely say there are some underlying soft skills that you need regardless. So some of the things that I deal with, and when I talk to leaders and things like that, and business owners, soft skills that they're looking for, regardless of the technical skills, do you have the ability to be a problem solver? Are you a critical thinker? Do you lean in and are you one that will just try to do new things? People would rather have a go-getter and someone who really is trying hard than someone who's an expert and not a great fit. So your personality, having emotional intelligence, coming in as a value add to a team, those soft skills really matter. Because also, if you're looking at two people that may have the same skill sets, but when you think about, is this person easier to work with? Is this person a better team player? Sometimes it comes down to the personality and not the skill sets. So those are things that people have to think about. And Rosalind made a great point earlier of reshaping the workforce when you have multiple multi-generational groups in a workforce. That's something that we're dealing with a lot. You have boomers and now Gen Alpha in the workforce coming in, and the different ways we think, the things that we've been exposed to. Again, emotional intelligence and being able to communicate and navigate through those things matter.
No, you're spot on. You're right. We have boomers, we have millennials, we have Gen Z, and we have alpha. Like
Yeah.
we have all We definitely have a multitude of generations, and you can see it. You can see the difference in just if we just take customer service alone. And I harp on this because I'm so big on customer service. Um, you can tell the difference between the boomers and the front end of the millennials, right? And don't forget Gen X. Gen X is there as well, right? You can definitely tell the difference in soft skills and customer service versus the back end of millennials and then Gen Z, and it's almost night and day. It's so alarming. And so you are 1,000% correct, which is one of the reasons that we inside of the chambers and inside of this committee, we've developed a workforce development program that focuses on soft skills. And we've done it because it is a missing art within our businesses, especially inside of our Black-owned businesses. And we want to make sure that our businesses continue to operate at an elite level, right? Because the great thing about us operating at an elite level, or some of us beginning to operate at an elite level, is it puts us in position to be able to have additional opportunities that we may not have been able to have otherwise. And Danielle, you made another interesting point that I remember having. I'm trying to think of who I was speaking with when I had this conversation. I want to say it was a friend of mine, but we were talking about the differences in the generations working together and how we haven't seen anything like this before, and how it's affecting the workplace, whether it's negatively or positively, you know. And so it definitely takes a unique skill set to bring all of that together and to merge it in a successful manner where your business is operating at the level that you need it to. So with that being said, how should business leaders assess their team's current skill gap? Because we need to make sure that we are, if we have these different generations in the workforce, and we are trying to understand and figure out how to best serve them so that they can best serve the business, which best serves the people, which keeps all of us employed, how in the world do they assess that? Because I think it's critical for us to be able to know that at a time such as this, because we have to be able to offer employment opportunities when so many of us are being thrown out of positions we've been in, some of us 15, 20, 30 years.
Well, one of the things is that they're going to have to do a skills inventory. They need to have their workers to kind of write down the skills that they have and the skills that they feel that they need. But they also, as an employer, need to know what skill sets they need to have that they don't already have or that are not proficient in the organization, because they need to kind of know where they are so they know where they need to get to. And then they need to find a way to build in continuous learning for their employees so that they have a way that they can learn these skills either in small modules or small snippets, or guide them to Coursera or other places like that, but give them an avenue where they can go and get these skills, but they can get them in digestible bites. So they don't have to try to learn everything at once, but they can do little by little. And that can be in that they can listen to podcasts, they could have an internal knowledge base where they have people go to, or they can use some of the resources that all of their public libraries have online. There's a resource called Galileo, and Galileo has every database and every kind of information on anything that you might want or need to learn. And it's free as long as you have a library card. So use the resources that are free and around you, as well as having your employer. And a lot of the employers have knowledge bases set up where they will have classes. Like when I worked for Crawford Long years ago, I learned how to use the internet and how to use Excel and Word and all of those things at work for free. So look in your organization and see what opportunities there are for you to learn on the job, and pay attention to the job ads that you see out, because they'll start asking for certain criteria. And if you know you don't have those things, put those things on your list of things that you personally need to learn how to do so that you can be up to date on what the skill sets and the requirements will be as your job moves forward.
That's good, Rosalind. And you know what? You touched on something that I was going to ask about anyway, which was about the budgeting, the expensiveness of being able to upskill if you have a smaller mid-sized business. So Danielle, I charge you to do a double answer as well.
Well, the
Because
good
that's
thing,
something people forget about. They forget about the library and all of the
yes,
free
and
information and access it has.
yes, and also the great thing that Lauren had charged us with in preparing for this was pulling together resources. So outside of your public libraries, I pulled together a lot of resources, honestly, off the internet. There are many what I would call learning institutions that you can find everywhere for free. There's stuff on YouTube. There are different other organizations. I love Khan Academy, stuff like that, that have pulled together those resources for you. One of the things that I would also like to touch on with this is, especially for my small business owners, Rosalind made a couple of key points here. It is about understanding what the job requires. I know that as you're building out your business, and you're normally, most people start off as a business of one, and then they grow their business.
Mm-hmm.
And as you are looking to add to your business personnel, you really need to take a step back and say, what are the skill sets that I need from the person that I'm bringing in? Because that's where we have a lot of, turnover, confusion, people that don't have job satisfaction or unrealistic expectations, where it is understanding what are the skills that you need for those folks. And I talk to them about that. When you're building up that job description to hire, that's when you really need to be thinking about not just the hard technical skills, the soft skills that people need, that you're bringing into your organization. If you already have employees, professional development and performance management is where a lot of this happens also. It is, if you have a team or a team member, and I would say this to employees also, when you do your performance reviews or even check-ins with your supervisor, you need to tell them about the skills that you have. Because a lot of times people don't know what
Right.
you do outside of what they expect you to do. So it is you being your own champion of saying, I know that I'm here to work customer service, but I also, have experience in managing projects. And I also know how to build, different Excel tables and things like that. So it is you championing yourself within an organization. And also, as Rosalind said, it is looking internally to what they offer, because go for the free stuff internal, because if they're paying for it, that means it's important to them. Take
Mm-hmm.
advantage of what's there. For organizations that are not large enough to, to be able to offer a lot of learning, through your organization, there is a lot of free stuff out there to learn the basic business skills, project management, soft skills. There's a lot of stuff out there that you can guide your employees toward, and then make it incentives, to them. If you bring a certificate of completion, give them a good gift card or a couple of extra hours here or there. So there are things that you can do that won't break the bank, that will allow you to have your employees invest in themselves. And then that then turns into investment to the organization.
Mm. So I'm glad that you said that, because I was definitely going to ask about what types of incentives, right? Because most of the time we think, well, I can't do what some of these other companies are doing, but just something as simple as a gift card or a little bit of flex time,
Mm-hmm.
which is what, it does go a long way, especially when you are confined to a building or, an office or a location all day. So the small things, it could be, they get a free lunch that day. It's one person, it's a lunch. It's not
Right.
and they get to have an hour versus, an hour versus half an hour, or maybe an hour and a half versus an hour, whatever it may be in terms of the flex time and what that looks like. So that's good advice. And I do want to go to the chat really quick, because we do have some comments in here that I think are worth mentioning. So one of our attendees, Stephanie, she said that, and this is in reference to one of the soft skills conversations we were having. She said, I agree with EQ. and want to add that emotional intelligence is one of the most important factors for personal and professional success, often outweighing technical skills and IQ. And to that point, I want to add this. I have a friend from college. She was up for a superintendent seat at a school district. And I was one of those people, I used to be in education, so I followed things from time to time. And I was following the hiring process for this particular seat. And the two ladies she was up against, they were way more qualified than she was. But I was able to sit in on the interviews virtually. And she was way more charismatic, passionate, and engaging. While she didn't have the skill set to the level that they had, she didn't have enough leadership enough leadership experience to qualify on top of the personality, the passion, and the charisma. That won them over because they were like, what we can do is put supporting consulting pieces in place for her while she builds the additional skill set that the other ones already had. She got the job over them. So you're absolutely right. Emotional intelligence can definitely outweigh technical skills, which goes back to a point that you made earlier, Danielle, as well. And then Stephanie also said LinkedIn is a good learning source as well. And they give certificates. If you didn't know that, they really are a great source. And then Gwen shared libraries includes online and other libraries as well, because some of the public libraries are closing down, and they are because we are not frequenting them the way that we once did, and because those that are in power find ways to cut certain funds often. So we do have a question from the audience that I think is very well worth tapping into. So let me see. Hold on. Let me get your name. It just says clothing personality, but I know your name is not clothing personality. But if you could come off of mute, feel free to ask your question. If you can't, I will definitely ask your question on your behalf.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it said my name. I thought I renamed myself.
That's
I'm Arthur
okay.
Reese.
Arthurine?
Arthur Reese.
Arthur Reese. Hey, Arthur
Yes.
Reese.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Yeah, so I was wondering when y'all were talking about employees learning new skills and that sort of thing, and I was wondering as a business owner if the employees take it upon themselves to learn more information and get certifications and stuff, and they notify, me as a business owner about that certification, and I actually want them to use it in my business. Do I have to pay them more? Because you know how a lot of times employees will say, well, this is not in my job description, or that sort of thing. So I'm just wondering the benefit of this as a business owner.
I would
That's a good
say,
question.
as a business owner, one of the things that I've found is if you invest in your employees, a lot of times it's, people do things for more income, but also people want to work in a place that they feel valued and they feel that they are contributing. So some of the things that you look at, especially for small business owners, it can be a combination of setting expectations, like I said, during performance management, of explaining to them that we want you to grow with us. So to build these skills long term, and let's talk about what a career plan looks like. It doesn't have to be very transactional in the sense of if you get this certification, then you're going to get a couple of more dollars an hour. No, it is, let's look at the bigger picture, because if they do more and add more to your organization and helps it grow and adding revenue, those are the opportunities for more money also, or different types of positions, if that makes sense.
Yes, that
So
makes perfect sense.
okay.
Yes.
So yeah, so we want to look at it in a way, because a lot of people move companies. It's not for the money. Money is a factor, but it is how they feel that they're being treated at that organization. If
Yeah.
they feel that that organization is helping them grow and letting them be a part of that, and that's a hard part at times with smaller businesses, because if you have, let's say, under 10 employees or even 20, and the business is growing and somebody is like, well, I'm still making $10 an hour, but we're doing this. They feel like, well, why do I want to stay here? But if you're like, you know what, we're growing and you may be a receptionist now, but you take a couple of project management courses, or if you do this, as we're growing, I want you to grow with me.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's how we want to frame it for business owners also, because it's cheaper to invest and honestly pay someone 5-10% more than it is to go through the process of hiring an unknown and what it costs for you to train them up. And then you don't even know if they're really going to be the investment that you want. That person that's asking for more development is a known entity, and they're telling you that they want to be a part of this. I'd rather invest in that than in something else.
Makes sense.
And you want to have an environment of lifelong learning. So you want to tell them from the beginning that you want them to continuously learn and give them opportunities to do that. And as Danielle said, you want to let them know that if you keep reskilling and upskilling, it gives you opportunities for promotability, because a lot of people don't know what it takes to be promoted. So if you can kind of set those expectations, and one of the things as you're starting with their evaluation, maybe put part of their career path in their evaluation. So
Mhm.
if you take X number of classes during the year, now you're eligible to be promoted for this, this, or this. So they know what the expectations are up front, and you've made the courses and the availability of the learning tools there for them so they have access to it. But one thing you can think of as a small business too, public libraries are always looking for speakers and looking for people to partner with. So if your organization needs training, look at your libraries to see if they're doing that kind of training. And if they're not, you can call the library and ask, well, if my company does X, Y, and Z for you, or we present a speaker on this, that, and the other, would you all do a class for us? They have computer labs. They can do classes on computers and Excel and on searching for information and researching. And they have a lot of databases that can give companies that information that they need about the environment, the other companies, the customers, and that kind of thing. They have databases that will collect and connect you with your ideal customers once you identify those. So they have a lot of resources for free that can help you. So if your employee does take it upon themselves to reskill and upskill, just make sure that you have clear expectations for them as to what it's going to take for them to get to the next level, so that you don't have to pay them for everything, because every job has that bottom line that says other duties as assigned. And that kind of is a catch-all. It means whatever you can do that you need to do. But they have a vested interest in you growing, because if you grow, they grow. And
Right.
I always told folks that when people are with you, if they leave you and they're more talented when they leave you than they came to you, you have done your job right. So want to help them to upskill.
Right. And then I would also go back, because I'm looking some in the chat around compensation. Yes, we want to compensate our folks. And I know as a small business owner, because I'm one too, with employees, and because I work in HR, I'm looking at data. And I'm looking at, like I said, if someone is willing to invest in themselves and is saying, hey, I want to do more, I want to keep that person. But I also understand that it's going to cost me something. And with that, I may not have the budget now. So when I go, and we talked a few minutes ago about what little incentives can I do, what are the conversations we're having about their career development? What can I do if we get a new account, or if our revenue is increased? Letting them know that there is the potential for that. Because like I said, it is easier to develop known sources and known talents in your organization and pay them better than it is to let them walk out the door and then have to invest in the whole process of getting new people with that. Because what they're saying is, for like hourly employees, statistics are that if they don't stay 160 days, that they are costing you 1.5 times their yearly salary of what you've got to invest in hiring a new person, getting them trained up so that they can then start making you money. So it costs you more money to invest and retain good talent than it does to let that talent walk out the door. And again, we're not talking people that are asking for 20, 30, 40, 50% salary increases. We're talking people that may want On the high end, 10%, but normally like around 5% that we're looking at. So when you look at your numbers for your business, it does, it is better for your bottom line.
It is. And retention definitely is less costly, Coach Linda. I can
Yeah.
attest to that because I've definitely dabbled in several. Now interns, having interns are slightly different, but some interns will want to stay with you all year long if they can. Some of them will come back, repeatedly. And if you get that, that's a plus. But every time that I've had to bring a new intern to the table, I've had to start the process all over again. Luckily, I'm a procedures, processes oriented person. So I had everything laid out to where it was much easier. And then I had someone else that could definitely train them. Everybody already had the template. We knew what we could do. Bam, bam, bam. However, it was a lot more stressful when I had to bring someone on staff. An intern is something, when I had to bring someone on the staff and I had to keep replacing someone, that was a problem. And so I had to figure out what I needed to do about that. So definitely retaining them is much cheaper, much more cost effective than you having to constantly train someone again. And I'm just curious, how I need in the chat, this is what I need you guys to put. If you are a business owner or an executive level leader within an organization, please put a 1 in the chat. If you are an employee currently, please put a 2 in the chat. And I know some of us might be mixed, but whichever one is your primary. If you're full-time this or you're full-time that, I need to know which one you are, because that kind of helps us give you additional information inside of the conversation as well. Okay.
And Lauren,
Okay.
one thing I wanted to add is Danielle talked about small incentives. One of the things I did when I started one job, I did an information audit with every employee, which means I spent 30 minutes or so with each employee to find out, what do you do outside of work? What do you like to do? And that helped me to be able to know when I had committees or special assignments or whatever, who could be a good fit for that. And if you select somebody because they told you, well, I am a graphic designer, I'd really like to do that, and then you assign them to a task that does that kind of thing, they now feel more valued, more part of the organization, and they will go the extra mile for you because now they feel included and like their comments and their suggestions matter. So if you include them, and even if you do something like, when Danielle talked about take them to lunch, just the fact that you, the boss, are taking them to lunch, they are really honored that you have taken them to lunch, and then ask, generally like, give me some feedback, what works for you, what doesn't. Because when I did my audits, I said, what do you do? What gets in the way of what you do? And how can we improve that? So from the beginning, I had a list of all of the things that they were saying were wrong with the place before I got there good. And that way I can go through and fix the low hanging fruit and then get to the other stuff.
So I love that. And I love that you're bringing that to the table, because my next question kind of piggybacks off of that. And so my thought is, if you are a professional, because I want to swing it back to those who are currently employed by a company. If you are a professional and you feel stuck, which a lot of people feel stuck, a lot of us have felt stuck, or you're just kind of unsure of where to start. And we talked about it a little bit, but I really want to drill into this. What's the first step towards reinvention? We know that you can go, we have the resources to talk about in terms of education and additional certifications and platforms that we can use. But what's the very first step towards reinvention? Is it going and talking to your supervisor or your manager and letting them know where you are? Is it literally going to just take the action and getting the skill set, or reinventing the wheel for yourself in some manner? What is that like actual first step? And what are 2 or 3 different steps that come behind that, so that you know that you're on a proper trajectory?
Something I would say on that, because I've definitely been there multiple times in my career. And I would say it wasn't at work where I started having that conversation. It was with my network of saying, hey, I just don't feel, like I'm fulfilled here anymore. And I'm trying to figure out different things. And this is a great time to kind of ask folks, do you have mentors or people that you can talk to about your professional development. Because, you know, it's a little, you know, you need to do some personal inventory to kind of look at things of saying, you know what, uh, is this the career that I want to be in? Because it may be you want a career change, period. And if I have to pivot, what is that going to look like for me? Or is it, like you mentioned, is it something where I want to pick up some new skills because I want to move within this organization? Or if I have to go outside, what do I need to look like? So it's doing that personal inventory. It's having conversations. You know, with I kind of have my council, again, military, I have my council of colonels, where I have folks that I have conversations with, you know, about where I'm going in my career, with my business. Also, like I said, it's understanding what's going on in the world around us. You know, and I know that there are a lot of folks, because of the major things going on with the layoffs in the government, with the layoffs in private sector. It's looking at it and saying, okay, there's a lot of chaos going on. Where are the opportunities? And that's where sometimes, and I tell folks this all the time, I have found more success in chaos than any other time, because a lot of people freeze and they just kind of wait and see what happens. You got to move. And it doesn't mean that that movement's going to give you everything that you want immediately, but it's laying that foundation. So it's doing that self inventory. It's having conversations with, you know, with people that you're close to and that understand who you are. And it can be, if you have a good relationship with your boss or with somebody at your organization, having those things and then looking at what are the skills that I need, or what are the things that I need to be exposed to. Because the other thing, especially those that work at organizations, you may have the skills, but you may not have been given the opportunity to implement those. So where can I look for opportunities to be a part of a project or to do something different? So it's looking at those things when you're stuck. And if you don't have those opportunities in your organization, Rosalind made a great point of, what are you doing outside? I know there are a lot of people that belong to um, uh, organizations, even like the Atlanta Black Chamber. Where can you volunteer and learn new skills, build your network? Because it may not be at work. It may be through your fraternity or sorority. It may be through other social organizations, your church. All of those organizations need all of the skills that we have. So those are great places to test them out, to learn some new skills, and to figure out if this is what I want to do.
And I would add to that, now I always do the self-awareness and honest assessment. So every year in January, I do an assessment of where I am and where I thought I would be based on last year. And I look at what energizes me, what things really get going that I really want to do, and what things drain me. So that will kind of lead you to, what do you really want to do that you're not doing in your current job now? But also, what skills are you passionate about, or what skills are you not using that you have that you really would like to use? And then you need to look at what values you have, what matters to you, what goals do you have. So if you set your own self inventory and know kind of where you want to be, every year in January, I look back and say, okay, last year I said by this time I would be certified as a grant writer. Check that off, because I got my grant writing certification. Because if you have things written down for yourself and you go back to that list quarterly or periodically, you'll start to do and check off some things on that list. But you really need to know where you're headed so you know how you get there. And then look at your transferable skills, leadership and other things that Danielle just talked about. Those are things that you can learn, you can be a part of, like she said, with your organizations. If you're in professional organizations, volunteer for some of those committees, volunteer to be officers. I got a lot of my leadership experience because whenever I got in the organization, first of all, I joined the committee where the power brokers were, the people who were moving and shaking. Then I volunteered. And before a year or two in each organization, I rose to the top to become the chair. And then I put in some literature. They said, you sign up for what committees you want on. I said, I want the chair. I don't want a committee. I want to be the chair. And it happened that the person who was coming in to be the chair had to move to China. So they were looking for a chair. When they saw my application, they like, is she for real? I said, yeah, I'm for real. I want to be the chair. So be willing to take on those responsibilities, but you can learn volunteering for any organization at any level, and that will help you in whatever you do.
Oh, Rosalind, so you hit on a couple of things there. One, the honest introspection. Be honest, keyword honest with yourself about what gets you excited and what doesn't. And it wasn't probably until maybe sometime last year, maybe it was this year, that I really took the time to sit down. I've done introspection before, and I've been honest with it, but really being honest and identifying and paying attention to what excites me. When I'm in a conversation, what really like makes me zone in? When I'm working on something, what really drives me? And then the things that don't, I need to put somebody else in place who's skilled to do that, because it's draining me leading the organization if I have to do this, and that, and I hate doing this, but this is a critical part of my business. It's like you basically are running a rat race and you're never gonna get off the wheel, and you just wasting your time and your energy, and then you're like, this is too hard, I quit, I don't want to do this anymore, right? And so that can stop all of that. But then the other piece, when you're talking about getting involved in organizations, so I'm going to give this example. I joined the chambers in July 2020. By July 2021, I was co-chair of the Real Estate and Professional Services Committee. By the end of 2021, I was the sponsorship lead for the Global Opportunities Committee in ABC. By the time 2022 came around, I was the director of operations for the South Metro Affinity Group. And by the time 2024 came around, I was the member of the year for the chambers. This year, instead of being in sub-support leadership roles, I am the committee chair now for this committee for education and workforce development. In another organization, in 23, I was the secretary for the chapter. In 24, I was vice president. And then I was appointed to the national board. So I'm a board member now. But then for 2025, well, for 2025, I've been named the president of the chapter for the 2026. So you're absolutely right, because those are skills that I can leverage, whether I am looking to build my own organization or I am looking to get back into the workforce and get into a leadership role. I have these skills and these muscles and a multitude of capacities which I've developed, where I may have been naturally born with them, but now I've actually honed them even more in a professional setting with other professionals. So I thought that was really key advice that you definitely just gave regarding how you can use different organizations and getting involved. I'm a proponent for getting involved and getting involved. I'm not just gonna have my name on a roster. I'm running.
I want to make one more comment. For those of you who are employees, when you ask to go to a conference or whatever, if you are on a committee or you are an officer or you are taking a class and you're going to bring those skill sets back to your employers for your employees, that makes it that much easier for your employer to okay you to go on that trip. So they want to know that there's a return on investment for them. So I would tell my employees, tell me what you're going to do at the conference, because you're not going just to be going. You got to be serving in some way where our name gets out there and your name gets out there, and you learn something, and then we benefit from that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I would also add to this is, guys, this is building your network, because in times like this, we have to look around us and to say, who do we know, or where there may be opportunities outside of our organization if our jobs may be going away, or, there may be things that we're not happy with and we want to make a move. So there are multiple benefits for when you're looking at reinventing yourself and looking at adding skills. It's not just taking on another task, because sometimes that's what people think about joining organizations and being on a committee or leading a committee, that I'm now just doing more work. No, the returns are much greater than you realize on that. And then one thing that I want to talk is, someone asked in the group of the difference of what's a sponsor.
Well, before you go there, Danielle, let me give them a little background, because I was literally about to go to that.
Okay.
So Stephanie added into to the chat, I want to add sponsors and advocates are great as well. Sponsors are in rooms you are not and can use their capital to ensure you get that job you're looking for. If you don't have a sponsor yet, this should be your number one priority. And she went on to explain that sponsors are typically 2 levels above you and know about positions well before they are posted. And that was specifically in reference to the conversation piece in this particular question, where we were discussing leveraging your network and making sure you have the right pieces of your network. And that's called working for you when you're not in the room. So Danielle, if you could go ahead and speak to that like you were.
Yes. So, and this is something that I learned earlier in my career, being a part of an organization, because the things that we're talking about now are things that they're not going to teach you in the courses in your organization. Nobody's going to teach you about finding a mentor, finding sponsors, having, your own personal board of directors as you were trying to like feel stuck, or if you're looking to add skills, things like that. Having someone, within your organization, and a lot of times you got to seek them out. They're not going to be people that are just like, hey, if you need a mentor, come on by and see me. It's like, no, it is, finding someone that you're admiring the way they do their work. Sometimes we try to align with folks that are like us. I'm a little bit opposite. If there are areas that I know that I need to grow, and I'm a little bit of an extrovert, I tend to go toward the introverts at work, the data folks, like I said, and learn from them and understand what they do and, how they became successful, and just build and forge relationships. And it's amazing that, again, if you go back to the point of being stuck, those are people you can have those conversations with. Also, those are people that if you see a job opportunity or a project coming up, to say, hey, I'd like to, learn some more skills or to hone in on some of the skills I have. Those are people that are going to speak on your behalf in the room when they're building that team, or when those opportunities that come up. They're the ones that are going to be able to say, hey, Rosalind should be a good person that you guys will want to add to the team. She works in this department, but she has these types of skills. I think she would be a good fit. And the other thing is, these people are vouching for you. So it's not just a random person that is, that works in the office and says, hey, I want to do this. Can you put in a good word? No, you have established a relationship. So this person is much more comfortable with speaking on your behalf. And that is important.
One thing you can do, if your organization has a newsletter, read the newsletter and learn to read in between the lines, because they may say, John Smith just got promoted to be the vice president of so-and-so. And you may not know John, but you know somebody who can introduce you to John, and you can find out what John is saying his platform is going to be. And if you adopt some of those things and assist him with that. So for example, when I worked for Crawford Long's library, I was the director of the library, but I would always read the newsletter. And I saw that 2 doctors were supposed to give a talk on the most prevalent diseases in men and women. So one was a man, one was a woman. So when I read that, I kind of smiled and I said, I know they don't have a clue what this is about. So what I did, I ran some research for them and I sent it to them saying, I know you have a speech coming. I want you to be prepared. Here are the things that you're going to need for that. And the male doctor came in and almost kissed my feet, because he was like, oh, I didn't know what I was going to talk about, because this was not what they asked me to talk about. But I am so glad that you have done this for me. So see, now I have done something for him. So if I need him to recommend me, or he'll say, that librarian we got, she is really good. She's on top of. So now you're getting free publicity. So if there are ways that you can help people in what they do, and if you read the newsletters and look at, the things, or go to some of the meetings and listen to the things that they say, you'll kind of be able to predict some of the things that are about to happen. And you can position yourself that I really would like to be involved with that, or, let your boss know, or let your boss's boss know, and then go to some of the social events so they get to recognize you and know your face and know your name. Because a lot of times, getting to know you, they get to know some of the benefits and some of the things that you bring to the table that they didn't know about.
That's spot on to a couple of questions that I had that were remaining in our conversation. One of them was literally going to ask, how can workers identify which skills will truly be in demand in the next 3 to 5 years? And you pretty much told them one way, which is being in the room, but doing a little bit of research ahead, identifying which room you need to be in, doing a little bit of research ahead of time, and then of course listening to the conversation, right? I think too often we're so busy trying to make our point and be seen, and so people know who we are. And sometimes you just got to sit back and listen, because they're going to tell you what the problem is. They're going to tell you what's needed. And then you've got to figure out if you're the solution or can you bring the solution to the table. Either way, you now become a valuable player in that realm, and you've built your network out, or you've built your opportunity one way or another. So I'm actually glad that you brought that, Rosalind. And Jeremy added, you also want to ensure that your future sponsor or champion is aware of your accomplishments and tangible deliverables within the organization. You're right. Because I literally, at one point, Jeremy was doing so much stuff. My mentor said, people ask me all the time, they say how amazing you are, how well you present, how they can tell how you have had this, that experience. And then they ask me, what is it you do? And I have to tell them she does a lot of things. We're still figuring it out. Like, and you're like, all right, Lauren, this is the direction that we're going to go in, because otherwise now my mentor and then my other mentor and then they can't speak on my behalf if I'm not diligent in what it is I'm doing, and they don't understand that. And they had no problem putting their name on me. They had seen how I work. They know how I carry myself. They know how I interact. They know all of my qualities, right? My natural qualities, but they couldn't speak to certain opportunities because, yes, she has a skill set, but is that something she really wants to do? Does she want me to speak to that for them, for this time in this room with these people? So I think that's a very, very, very good point that you made. And then Stephanie added, I separate advocates and sponsors because an advocate may have the currency to get you where you want to go or not, but they can say great things about you in the rooms you are not. They can also talk you up to peers. Sponsors definitely have the capital. So yeah, they are two different areas. And then Dale added, going back to the conversation on being stuck and you're an employee, I recommend reading the book or listening to the audio book, Who Moved My Cheese? Let me tell you, I was introduced to that book. It had to be like 2015 or 16 when I was still a teacher. And it's a good read. If you've never read Who Moved My Cheese, that's a good one, Dale. You definitely want to read that particular little nugget. It has some great insight to it, and it's different than whatever your mind is thinking right now. So what I want to do is
read Fish.
Say that again, Rosalind.
If you're a manager, read Fish. It will help
Fish
efficiently and more effectively. And it's a quick read too, just like Who Moved My Cheese.
Okay, so y'all have another one. Fish is another one if you are an employer or a leader. Okay, so Author Reset, can you speak to how to leverage your skills as an employee into your own business?
All right, that's a good question. Part of what I would say on that, some of the things that I've learned, because most folks that have businesses make the transition in, some of the things to be successful is planning. Even though you're going in and you're doing multiple things, you have to sit down and plan. Organizational skills are super important. Skills that I didn't have that I had to learn, finance, learning how to manage your money, pay your taxes, learning, different things of doing research, things like that. So those are skills that you would use in your regular job that you would, transition into your own business, on there. So.
And I would say you really need to become familiar with the entrepreneurial skills and things that you need to have in place. Like you need processes and systems and procedures. So while you're still at your old job, start to do research for what you want to do and start to set up your processes and your everyday standard operating procedures. Because once you get started, if you get influx right away with a lot of clients, you're going to have a hard time going back trying to set up those processes. And if you have to hire people, you need to be able to share those standard operating procedures with them so they know how to do stuff the way you want them to do it. But that planning piece, because when I was in graduate school, I knew one day I wanted to be a consultant. So every time they assigned us with a research project, I did it on consulting. So I had already done all the research. I started going to meetings where other consultants were there so I could listen to the conversations and find out some of the tips. Because one lady asked another lady, she said, well, how many employees do you have? And she said, I don't hire employees. I hire 1099 employees. So see, I would have thought that you only get the ones that have the daily paycheck, but this was an excellent way for me to find out free of charge what other people in the industry are doing. So you want to start getting into those circles of what you want to do. So you find out how people are doing. Look at the competition out there. See who else is doing it. See what they're doing, how well they're doing, and what things they are excelling in. And then look at your skills and your talents and assess which area you really feel like you would make a big splash in, that you could really do well in, because you're not going to be everything, but starting out as an entrepreneur, you're going to have to be everything. So you're going to have to know a little bit about everything, but you need to know when to do it yourself and when to hire somebody else or outsource it so that they can get some of those things done for you. But there are a lot of things, but the planning piece that Danielle talked about is really, really critical, because you have to have planned this out and know what you're trying to get into and when it's time for you to move. So you might start as a side hustle and then pick up and then do it full time.
Right. So, and there are a lot of honestly free business boot camps that will walk you through the process to do that. So I think that's a great question. But to your point, it's like some people end up doing their passion, and you may have a great talent, but it's those other skills that you realize that are the deal breakers on businesses. A lot of people fail because of the lack of processes in the management of it, not based on the service they offer or the product. So it's that infrastructure, because you think about it, every company we have has policies and procedures. Every single organization does.
Yeah, I was going to ask, are there businesses out that would help you with creating SOPs?
And
Yes.
and I'm sorry, let me just interject. If you guys could keep that brief, because we had one more question that came into the chat before Arthur Reese asked her question, and I want to make sure that we get that one in as well. But both of you, please, if you would speak to Arthur Reese's question.
Okay, ask the question again.
I just asked, is there a company that actually helps with creating SOPs?
Well, I'm sure there are some companies out there that would help you with that. But one thing you can do for free is, if you know the industry that you're going in, go to the internet and look at that company. And sometimes they will have their policies and procedures on there, but then you could also search for policies and procedures for a such and such company on the internet. And even with Chat GPT, or Chappie, as I call mine, they will help you. You tell them, I'm trying to start a clothing business. Give me some examples of standard operating procedures for a clothing business. And in 3 seconds, you got at least a template that you can work for, so you don't have to start from scratch and you don't have to pay somebody a whole lot of money to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, it's honestly a part of the business that I do, especially on the HR side, because that gets a lot of folks in trouble because there are legal requirements depending on the type of business that you have. But definitely, if you're going to have personnel, there are things, and you can find the information on ChatGPT. But there are times where you're going to need to have a legal review, depending on your type of business, of some of the policies and procedures that you have. But that is a good place to start.
And I'm glad that you spoke to that, Danielle, because, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Janae, She said, is a college degree a must when hiring employees? And I was about to say, a college degree is not a must, but you probably want to put someone who's in HR or someone in legal. You want to run that by them because you can get yourself in some serious unintentional trouble if you don't have the right knowledge base to support you when it comes to hiring and bringing in employees, because it can get sticky. But if either of you want to speak to that in a little bit more detail, please feel free.
Right. I guess, Janae, on that question, is it just hiring in general, or is it for the types of structures that we're trying to build? That's where I was a little confused on that question.
I'm not sure if she's able to come off of mute. Okay, there she
I'm
goes.
sorry. It's in general.
No.
Okay.
And honestly, what's happening with a lot of organizations, especially large tech organizations, they are hiring based on skills. Traditionally, it used to be on who you worked for, how long you worked there, what your job title was. As we talked earlier about your skills, what soft skills do you bring to the table, but also technical, because there are people that have great organizational skills or may know about different softwares or applications. And that's what that job needs. It doesn't need a 4-year degree. But on the other side, there are certain types of jobs where that is the standard, because there's an expectation that you've been exposed to different types of principles or information, where they want that just as a baseline. So it could be a combination of both. But there are plenty of well-paying jobs out there where they care more about the skills that you have than the piece of paper.
Okay. Rosalind, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Well, I would just say the same that Danielle said, that you really are looking for. I was always looking for somebody who was teachable, because if I had 5 applicants for a job, my first assumption is that all of them can do the job, but I want to know which one can take us to the next level. So what else do you bring to the table that can enhance, what skill sets do you bring that can enhance the job? And it may be that you're very creative, or you're, a leader, and you would take charge if the boss is not there or the department person is not there. So, and those soft skills are real important. You have to be resilient. You have to be adaptable. So you can't get in and be stuck in your ways, and this is the way I've always done it. You have to be open to learn and continuously learn, because stuff is happening and moving so fast now that what you learned last year is almost obsolete right now. So I would say that ground yourself in knowing what else you can bring to the job. And as they talked about earlier, the soft skills are what a lot of the employers are complaining about, that a lot of these folks don't have them when they come in. They don't, understand coming to work on time and doing the things that they need to do, and then being polite and being easy to work with, those kind of things. So the soft skills make all the difference in the world. And a lot of time that is the difference between you being chosen and somebody else being chosen.
Okay, so
Thank you.
that was a great one. And you're ready. You're ready. You're welcome, Janae. So if each of you and before you guys hop out of the Zoom, I have some gifts, some nuggets that both Rosalind and Danielle wanted to share with you, some little gems, and I'm going to put them in the chat momentarily. So don't leave without getting that information and saving the chat. But if each of you could leave our attendees with one key takeaway about thriving in this new economy, what would it be?
Well, I think my one takeaway is that you have to change your mindset to become a lifelong learner. And for me, that's one reason I got into libraries, because they told me that you can pretty much become an instant expert in anything if you know how to research and how to find the information. So there are so many resources out here that are free. They are free online. They are free at YouTube University. They are free through your libraries. So if you have not in years paid any attention to your libraries in your community, look at their website and look at all of the free courses that they offer, all of the free computer classes that they offer. Like for my libraries, I do free grant writing classes. So there are a lot of things that you can get for free without having to pay for. And then, as I mentioned earlier, they have databases that have all kind of information in them. They have resources for helping you reskill for jobs and find jobs and all kinds of things. So use the resources that are at your disposal, but you have to become a lifelong learner. So whenever there's a ABC event or any other event that will contribute to your knowledge base, you need to make sure that you take advantage of those things so you can reskill and upskill. So when they're looking at your resume and somebody else's, they see 3 or 4 different skills that you have that make you a more valuable asset to the organization.
Okay, and Danielle, if you could chime in as well.
I am about resilience. This is a tough market for those looking, but also for those that have jobs and not knowing if they're going to have jobs. I talk to a lot of people about not hearing back from organizations that they're putting in resumes to. There's a lot of folks out there. But something that I have to remind myself on a spiritual level is that I'm still here. Even though I've been through things over the years, I'm still here. And you have to continue to dig in. And part of that digging in is really, to Rosalind's point, being a lifelong learner. And I would also say being aware of what's going on in the world and in the community around you. So as a part of the resources that I put in there for everyone, one of the things that I look at, especially for those of us who are in the Atlanta area, is what are the current industries and what are the growing industries. So if you're looking to pivot, and what's cool about this, guys, is that even though it may be a different industry, skills are transferable. People that work in energy, they still have a marketing and operations, transportation department, IT, healthcare. All of those industries have these types of jobs. So don't get stuck on an industry. Job skills are transferable. So being resilient and thinking outside of the box, being resilient at times, taking on other, opportunities, like we talked about volunteering, because that expands your network. Doing things that may not seem as normal or comfortable or safe, you got to get out there. So, and you will be okay, because I'm pretty sure a lot of us have great support systems, or you can build one. There are folks that are out here doing the same thing, that are looking for that support, that you can make this happen.
I love that. I love the insight that both of you have shared today. And I just want to piggyback a little bit off of Danielle's, I'm still here, because we are all dealing with a lot of battles internally right now, whether you are the business owner or whether you are the employee. I don't care if you're at the executive level or if you're at a lower level and you're trying to work your way up, right? All of us are dealing with a lot when it comes to mental persistence, health, and strength. To be quite honest with you, we don't know what's coming. We don't know what's next. Everything is constantly changing, almost on a daily basis. We feel like we're spinning on our heels, a lot of us. And so I want to say, give yourself grace. I definitely want to say you to give yourself some grace, because it is a very interesting time for all of us. You are still here, and that matters. The fact that you opened your eyes today means that there's work for you to do, and you're still here to be able to do it. And so, and Janae, she remembered what you said earlier, Danielle, somebody else said it earlier as well. There are opportunities in chaos.
Yep.
So you just have to tune out all the noise, because it's a lot of noise. It's a lot of smoke and mirrors happening. You have to tune all of that out, even the negativity that you could sometimes feed yourself, because we're all guilty of it. And you have to really tap in and zone into, there's opportunity in chaos. And I woke up this morning and that was done for a reason. And then go and tune into yourself and really focus on and identify what that was and what it is you're trying to do, and just stay focused on that. Okay. So I want to thank you all for taking the time to join us this evening. I have dropped your resources in the chat. I hope that you guys saw them. If you did not, I will drop them in the chat again for you. They are branded by both of our amazing panelists and the wealth of knowledge and expertise that they have shared with us today. Please make sure that you get those resources out of the chat. When I say they are plentiful, they are plentiful. If you're looking for things that are unique, things that are cost effective, and things that will propel you forward, they are absolutely there in those documents. And I want to make sure you all get them. And if you, by so happenstance, not be able to grab them out of the chat tonight, I have your email addresses because y'all are wonderful and you've registered. And so I'll be able to send it to you in an additional follow-up email as well. So no worries. One way or another, we will definitely get those documents to you all. But we thank you for taking the time to join us this evening. Listen to us run our mouths so that y'all can see we do it well with no problem. And for giving us your energy and your engagement and your attention. And we hope to see you soon. If there is anything additional that you guys need from us, feel free to let us know. Danielle and Rosalind, if you want to share your information in the chat, feel free to do so that they'll have that as well should they have any additional questions. And you all have an amazing evening. And you all are welcome. I see everybody saying thank you. You're so welcome. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Lauren. Have a good evening.
You are most welcome. You have a great one as